I'm Gab, he's Jules. Grey and crappy skies over West London. Is it because the club football season is paused? Possibly, but Jules, we have the Nations League to keep us warm. We've got plenty of transfers to talk about. Who's getting excited for Brian and Mbumo to Manchester United? How about that? But let's start with the Nations League. We have Spain and France tomorrow night. Tonight even. Yeah. So obviously we're not talking about it because it hasn't happened yet as we record this on a Thursday morning. We're not yet big enough that we can tell UEFA to schedule their games around the show, but soon. So we'll talk about the other semifinal, which took place last night. Germany against Portugal. We were talking off air before. We thought it was even, or maybe even Germany, or you thought that Germany shaded it and was not so sure. Kind of took the lead with Wirtz early on.
Yeah.
And then kind of the bottom fell out. And we saw Chico Conceição come on, be near unplayable, as he can look sometimes. And then Cristiano, the winner. And then after that, some big saves from Marc-Andre ter Stegen.
No, I thought Germany for the first hour, apart from maybe the first 10, 15 minutes where it was quite even. I thought after that, they took control of the game. They back five, which is the second game in a row that Nagelsmann did that, kind of worked well. Obviously, in that midfield with Kimmich stepping in, they would have had, I think, a bit of control there. And then they could have scored 2 goals before the break. Voltemade had a great chance, first of all, when Sané got kind of touching the box, and then especially the Goretzka shot, which is 2 wonderful saves by Diogo Costa. So I thought that was good. And then they took the lead with Wirtz on again, lovely move. Kimmich, Voltemade involved, and Wirtz. And then Nagelsmann made some stupid substitutions, which didn't make any sense. And on the other hand, when Roberto Martinez got his starting lineup wrong, because Ruben Neves should never start for a team like this with so much talent, then when finally Vitinha came on and finally Roberto Martinez picked the right players, then Portugal looked much better. And then they were by far the better team in the last 30 minutes, which with the first goal from Conceição, and then obviously the winning goal from Cristiano.
So I was disappointed in Germany overall, obviously with the outcome. There's several big alibis. Obviously, no Rudiger at the back, who I think in terms of leadership as a level of personality that Jonathan Tah simply doesn't have, and Valdemar Anton's fine, I think, as maybe part of a unit, but he's not going to lead anybody either. And obviously Jamal Musiala at the other end. But I also thought Florian Wirtz, apart from the goal, was pretty anonymous.
I disagree. I mean, his numbers are exceptional for this game. Really. I thought he was great in the way he linked up the play, when he kept the ball, his great goal. Technically, I think he has the most... I think the numbers in the last third of the page were really outstanding. In a game where, again, is the first cap for Voltemade, for example, they never played together. Leroy Sané was there and doing Leroy Sané stuff. So even in kind of not maybe the best Germany team, I thought Wirtz still looked great.
All right, Voltemade, I was excited because, again, for people who haven't seen him, he is kind of like a YouTube phenomenon, but he's also showed this season that he's a good player too. He's incredibly tall, but he's got the close control skills. I think he needs to be used a certain way. I don't know that center forward is necessarily his position, certainly at club level. He plays behind a striker. He really struggled in this game. But on the other hand, Portugal, and yes, Cristiano fans will get to them. I thought once Vitinha came on, and then we were talking about two Paris Saint-Germain guys played, which I think is pretty remarkable. I guess Nuno played in the starting lineup, right?
Yeah.
I guess, people like Nuno Mendes, he's a big nerd. He probably didn't go out and party and made sure he got his rest, and boom, he was devastating again.
Yeah, very good.
But Vitinha coming on, I thought he just completely bosses things.
Yeah, it changed the game. Yeah,
they could have had many more goals.
Yeah, he changed the game completely. I mean, what an incredible player! And I guess when you're on the high of winning a Champions League, then the boost in confidence and everything is there. But yeah, he changed the game massively. I think that midfield three with Bernardo Silva and Bruno plus João Neves, when he played, being able to come into midfield. Then it was Semedo, who's a more traditional right back, that played instead of him. But yeah, that was outstanding. And for Cristiano, he scores, it's a tap in. His XG in that game is 1.71. So I'm sorry, it's not a good game from Cristiano.
That's because of
it's not a good game. He should have had a hat trick. He knows it anyway. Right. He scores a goal that you and I would have scored. There's no problem about it. It's made by Nuno Mendes and the 1-2 with Bruno, but not a good game from Cristiano.
All right, Jules, you've gone full numbers on that. He did have this header. I'm going to go full emotion. That header where he does, which he puts over the bar, should have done better, whatever. But that leap at 40 years of age. Come on, Cristiano. Come on. All right, Jules, let's stick with Cristiano a minute because people love talking about him. You gave an interview to his friend and kind of mini-me. Remember when Edu Aguirre, who was a Spanish influencer?
They look like each other.
He doesn't do this as much anymore, but he kind of tries to look like a young Cristiano. Maybe it's an accident. Maybe he just happens to style himself the same way. But he made the point, and he said, I am the most complete footballer in history in the sense that I'm tall, I'm strong, I'm technical, I'm fast, blah, blah, blah. It's like other people may prefer other players, whether it's Messi, Maradona, Pelé, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But when it comes to completeness, I really think I am the most complete. Is he on to something?
Yeah, I think he's right. I would agree with this completely. I think he's the ultimate footballer, really, when you think about it, because even I think his vision, okay, maybe the passing, you could say is not really there.
You could say Maradona and Messi might have been better passers than him.
But even from a number 9 point of view, I think players like Kane and Benzema can almost play at number 10s at times, which he doesn't do really. That's not his game. But as a striker, number 9 to start with, I think he's above everybody else because he's the most complete by far, more than all the other top number 9s in the history of the game. And then as a whole, as a like superstar, one of the GOATs, if you want to pick your GOATs, I think he can. Right. One of his pros is that he's the most complete ones amongst all the names that you mentioned.
You said one of the, and if you say one of the, I'm going to agree with you. I struggle a little bit with this concept of completeness because, yes, obviously he's tall. Messi and Maradona were small, so it's not. They're never going to have the heading ability, the leaping ability that he has, right? When we get to athleticism, they had a different kind of athleticism, but still, for Messi to keep playing and produce at this level, it's not like Messi's a crappy athlete, and just because Cristiano looks much better than Messi with his shirt off, right? And I would go back and, like, despite what some people think, I'm not that old. Pelé was before my time. But from the highlights, from what contemporaries say, in terms of being a freak athlete,
absolutely,
Pelé was a freak athlete,
completely.
As well,
especially at that time with less resources to be fit than you have now, right?
Exactly,
nutrition and everything.
And we swoon over Cristiano's vertical leap. Go check out Pelé's goal against Italy in the World Cup final in 1970, and talk to me later about vertical leap. So you put these things together, and look, even older people might bring up Alfredo Di Stefano as a guy who could do everything.
Absolutely,
But leaving that aside, I think on the passing point, I think if we're going to make that part of the package, which, a center forward, if you play center forward, that's not necessarily part of your game. But then again, let's not remember, Cristiano spent most of his career playing as a winger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where he was a phenomenal crosser of the ball.
Yeah.
But if we're going to talk about, perceptive passing and traffic and stuff like that, which we've seen Maradona and we've seen Messi do, probably not his forte.
No, yeah, you're right. And again, yesterday, Nagelsmann after the game, I was watching the game on French television, the commentary from Lizarazu, for example, he was just in awe of Cristiano's fitness at 40, and I completely understand it. And Nagelsmann said the same. But again, I watched this Portugal team, and we go to the eternal debate: should he start? Should he not start? He will start anyway. So there's no point us having a debate and a discussion: should Cristiano start for Portugal? Because we know that Roberto Martinez is not going to take him out of the team. He will be there now for this final on Sunday night. He will be there for the qualifiers. Most of them, you would think, and then he will start at the World Cup unless something happens and there's an injury or something, which we hope doesn't. So he will start. So there's no point me saying I would not start him. I don't know if you would or not, Gabby, but Martinez will start him, and Cristiano wants to start. I still think that this team will be better with another number 9, even a Gonzalo Ramos, who's not as good as Cristiano, who will never be as good as Cristiano. Because I look at him yesterday, and yet he scores the winning goals. But like I said, he should have had a hat-trick. His XG is 1.7 in a game like this. For a player of his caliber, 1.7 and you score 1 goal, it's not enough, obviously. And even all around in his game, is still not there. And I think this team is so talented that somebody like him at 40, he would be 41 and a half at the World Cup. He had the last two major tournaments where he didn't score a single goal. The Euros and the last World Cup. Didn't score a single goal. Had chances, could not convert them. You can't tell me that he's going to go to the US, Mexico and Canada in a year time from now, and we will all be there, and he's going to have like a top tournament. I just don't believe it. I would love to be wrong. I just don't believe it.
It's funny because to me, the issue with Cristiano, well, two things are funny. One is when Roberto took over, everybody assumed since kind of the Rubicon, the dropping of Cristiano had already been done, right? The heavy lift from Fernando Santos.
Yeah, in Qatar.
We thought, yeah, in Qatar, in the World Cup, we thought, okay, Roberto will be empowered to go and do what he thinks is best, right? He walks in, Cristiano's already been dropped. You know, you're a new guy there.
Yeah.
To me, I have no doubt that he starts Cristiano because he thinks it's best for the team.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think of the impact, and it's limiting to you in different ways. I'll give you one obvious example, right? If Rafael Leao is fit and productive, for me, he's an automatic starter on this team. Issue, Rafael Leao defensively, wandering mind, right? We've said this all along.
Yeah.
In the same way that we say we can't carry Real Madrid, or it's difficult for Real Madrid when you have Vini and Mbappe who don't do the work off the ball, at that point, you have Rafael Leao who doesn't do the work off the ball, and Cristiano who, at 40 years of age, can't do the work off the ball they used to. So then that puts more of a strain on the rest of the team. So then it almost becomes a Leao or Cristiano. And I say Leao, but I could mention others. You know, Bernardo Silva does a ton of work, but he's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So it has a really big knock-on effect on the team, and it limits the choices of the players you can put around him. And maybe that's why last night we saw Neto, because Neto runs and runs.
Same with Trincao.
Yeah, I don't know that when everybody's fit for Portugal, I need to see Neto in the starting 11. If I wanted my best players out there and I have so much depth and so much talent.
It's not them too. Definitely not.
Turning over to Germany, I'm trying to project forward, and I know there's obviously some younger players coming through. All right. We assume Wirtz and Musiala, if fit, behind the center forward. We assume 3-4-2-1. Does that...
That's 2 games in a row now, when before he had a back four, but 2 big games, the second leg of the quarterfinals against the Dutch, obviously, and then this semi-final at home against Portugal. So you think in his mind, this is the best system for a Kimmich, for example, on that right-hand side, to play together Musiala and Wirtz quite centrally, so you don't have one wide and the other one as a 10. Probably. Then you have a number 9. We discussed that after. And even on the left, to be fair, they don't have proper left back. They usually have wing backs, whether it's
Gosens or
Mittelstadt, even Rome. Like they are more wing backs than pure left backs, really. So I think he looks at his squad and thinks, this is good for us.
The one thing that I wonder about a little bit with that is, Kimmich on the right means no Kimmich in midfield, right? Because he can't be in 2 places at once. And then maybe Pavlovic can make the grade in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
He's obviously a very talented player. But who's with Pavlovic at the World Cup? Is it really Goretzka?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Stiller can play. I would not mind a Stiller Pavlovic double pivot, because I think you've got enough of Musiala and Wirtz for the creativity, and then one of them can make run. Pavlovic can easily be the box-to-box guy, and Stiller, sitting. And I think that's very much the idea. You've got Pascal Gross, who's not obviously quite old now at 33, but can do a job in terms of possession for the last 15, 20 minutes of a game. And even if you're behind, Goretzka can come on for 20 minutes and make those powerful runs forward too, a bit like what we saw earlier on in that game. I agree with you. I don't think Goretzka is good enough to start in a World Cup for Germany, but I think as a squad player, it's quite good. So if Stiller makes the step up, and Pavlovic as well, which is all on next season, because right now I'm not sure how much they're ready for it.
What I've seen of Stiller, he's a defensive specialist in midfield. It's quite exciting. And he's a good passer, but he's more of like I see him more, I don't know, maybe you can correct me, but I see him more as like a ball retention passer than necessarily like a creative passer.
Yeah, he's a creative passer. But for him to find Musiala and Wirtz in between the lines is perfect.
But if you're talking about 3 center backs plus Stiller, if you're going to play 3-4-2-1, then could you maybe look at gambling a little bit? Maybe you can put a winger on the left rather than, a winger who's willing to run himself, to work hard defensively. Especially because if on the right, Kimmich is just going to come inside and do the passing, right? I think with more time, and maybe we'll see this in a camp before the World Cup, assuming Germany qualifies, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Who knows?
Who knows?
How cool would it be if they? No, sorry, Germany fans. But yeah, it's a work in progress. The center forward issue is still a center forward issue because when the best on earth is there, he's still better than all these other people, right?
Better, a bit different, of course.
Füllkrug, blah, blah, blah.
Klein Dice. Yeah.
Tim Klein, come on.
But at least they've got 4. There was a time where they had 0. So now they've got 4 and to pick from. Not all of them will make the squad, obviously. But it's at least you've got slightly different profiles. Certainly in Havertz, the other 3 kind of a bit look like each other, to be fair, let's be honest. But yeah, so different. But where I agree with you, just to finish, you're right. If there's no winger in this team with your back 5 and then your double pivot and then Musiala and Wirtz and then your number 9, you like the pace of a Gnabry or Sané or players like that, which I guess can come off the bench. But to start with, you need, I think, a bit of pace, which this team would not really have at wide. So, it could be a problem.
All right, enough of Nagelsmann and his mustache. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Mateus Cunha to Manchester United is done. And now Brian Mbeumo could be on his way from Brentford in a deal worth up to 55 million. You like this, Jules?
I think it's a lot of money for 2 players for Manchester United this summer. 62.5 for Cunha, up to 55 for Mbeumo is a lot. I didn't think that a kind of left-footed right winger was what United needed and wanted, considering you have Amad Diallo, for example. But this is just me. Mbeumo chose United above instead of the other options that he had, including like Newcastle, for example, who were really keen on him too, to play in their 4-3-3, which is much more similar to what Brentford do than this United system under Amorim. So yeah, are they good players? They're very good players. Is it a lot of money? Yes, it is. And you can't get those wrong at that price, 55 and 62.
And at that age as well, I think, because, they're 25, 26. No, but what I mean is they're going to come in, they're going to sign 5-year deals. If it doesn't work out, you're going to really, really take a hit. It's not like a younger player where, you ultimately you spread the amortization, whatever, and you can convince somebody they're going to turn around. You have to get this right. Yeah,
and I don't want to put off United fans. And I'm not trying to be overcritical here, but Cunha overachieved his expected goals by 7. His goal tally by 7. How do you put it? So his expected goals is 7 higher than. Sorry. His number of goals this season in the Premier League. Sorry, I'll get that. His number of goals in the Premier League this season is 7 goals higher than his expected goals, and same for Mbeumo. So between the two of them is 14 goals extra, if you want, compared to the XG this season, which I think is a lot and is not really sustainable. So that's all I'm going to say.
Remember Ratcliffe said they'd started investing in analytics? Maybe,
that's right.
Maybe that's down the road. My views are clear. Osimhen, Vlahovic, similar age. They'll cost you a little more in wages. They'll cost you a little less in transfer fee. To me, one of those guys would have made a lot more sense. But hey, what do I know?
And meanwhile, Gab, Rasmus Højlund could be on his way out to help fund the deals for Cunha and Mbeumo. I guess Inter like him a lot, more than Mark Ogden does, for example.
Yeah, well, considering I don't think Mark Ogden likes any United player except for like Dennis Irwin and people who were there before that, people he saw as a 90s. Kid. I think Inter are doing the thing where obviously, Correa's gone. We'll get to that. Arnautovic obviously gone too. Hey, let's take him on loan. He'll be a third striker. He'll lead up some minutes. Let's negotiate an option to make the deal permanent, say 45 million. And then we'll know that after a year, though, we can always negotiate that option down. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. United want to make the deal. They say, permanent? No, we want to do it permanent or an obligation to buy. And Inter not so sure about that. But 45 million, I think, is the obvious amount because that is the residual amortization left on Højlund's contract. So if they don't want to take a loss on him, United need to get at least that. From one legend to another. Milan are close to picking up Luka Modric.
Oh,
Age is just a
Luka.
number, Jules.
Is it though? Is it?
We just talked about Cristiano Ronaldo scoring the winning goal that sends Portugal to the Nations League final.
Luka Modric is not Cristiano, and a midfielder is not centre forward either. I don't understand this one whatsoever. Even as a free, I'm sorry.
Different sheriff in town in Milan. They do things differently now, Jules.
Yeah, so what? They're going to sit deeper and just have Modric playing the kind of a quarterback role, if you want, and just bringing the ball forwards. I don't.
Last 30 minutes of the game.
Yeah, okay, as a sub, maybe.
Yeah,
but, I don't know. I would spend my money elsewhere, to be fair. Sticking with Milan, Gabby, could they really be sending our boy, Magic Mike Maignan, to Chelsea?
So, Magic Mike has 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
Chelsea have, I think, 99 senior goalkeepers on their books, something like that.
Yeah.
I think this to me speaks of negotiation. It looked like they were going to extend Maignan, I think, a year ago, and then negotiations stalled. I think they're still ongoing. I think he's a top 5 goalkeeper in the world. Didn't have the best season this year, but I think he's still right up there. He'd make sense at Chelsea for the way he plays. Yeah. He'd fit right in, but he doesn't make sense at Chelsea for his salary. And he doesn't make sense at Chelsea for his age. Not that he's old, but
30
he's not
next month.
Under the age of 24. So I think as a negotiation ploy, maybe see if somebody else comes out of the woodwork. So my guess is he's not coming to Chelsea. He's going to go somewhere else if he does. Or Maresca has so much credit with the club now that he says, hey, make an exception in Magic Mike's case.
He wants to go. They want him. I think this one will happen.
All right, Jules, we're not done. We have more quick hits and more United because you just can't get enough.
Absolutely not.
Bruno Fernandes says he got an exciting offer. He called it exciting from El Hilal in Saudi Arabia, but he's staying put because he, quote, wants to play at the highest possible level, unquote. I'm shocked.
I'm shocked. No, but I don't think it's easy to turn down all that money. Although Bruno doesn't need any money, he's got plenty already. But still, I think he probably makes you think, especially at his age. He wanted to still play at the highest level, which is great. And we've seen players going to Saudi Arabia who clearly didn't want to do that. And also, United wanted to keep him. I think it would have been more difficult if Ruben Amorim or people at United had said to him, listen, it could be good for us if you were leaving and if we could get the 100 million euros that they are offering for your transfer and this and that. But that was clearly not the case. So they're going to stay together. And yeah, I think it's a good thing.
I'm a massive natural skeptic about all this stuff. And you'll see why in the next quick hit.
And speaking of Al Hilal, he could have teamed up or played under Simone Inzaghi, who walked out on Inter on Tuesday and decided to join Al Hilal. Gab, you didn't think it would happen?
No, I genuinely didn't think it would happen because I think he's entitled to do what he wants. But I think this is a walkout on a team that wanted to keep you because you get paid a ton of money. And by the way, from Bruno Fernandes' perspective and the certainty that it would happen and the way Al Hilal is run, you're going to go and offer this mega deal to Bruno Fernandes and you expect him to say yes without knowing who the next coach is because this offer dates back more than a week.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact Simone didn't actually go and commit until...
But he didn't say no either. So they could have said to Bruno, listen, we've got negotiation with Inzaghi. He looks quite keen.
Okay, so then make sure that it's Simone Inzaghi who rocks up and not Eric Ten Hag. Well, it wouldn't be Eric Ten Hag.
No,
and not some guy who I think is rubbish. And then, but whatever the situation, it was funny because they prepared this ad for him, which they actually shot in Paris immediately after the Champions League final, where everything about the ad looks good. First of all, Simone is not a cinematic looking guy.
Yeah.
He just does not look that way. But he's walking through some fancy hotel.
In Paris.
In Paris,
so he went to Paris just to shoot this ad.
He went to Paris just to shoot this ad,
wow.
Yes. And you hear this music coming, you hear commentary coming from the radio about Inzaghi, but it's not him. It's his brother. It's Pippo Inzaghi scoring the second goal in the Champions League final in Athens against Liverpool. They describe him, they obviously show him with the espresso because, hey, look, that's all we do is drink espresso in Italy. And he's described as the Italian genius, which I don't think anybody's ever called Simone Inzaghi an Italian genius. So whatever, good luck to him. Good luck to his money. It is, I think, really disappointing from a sporting perspective. But anyway, it's done.
It's done.
Cesc Fabregas and Roberto De Zerbi are two of the guys most often mentioned for the Inter gig. Jules, Who would you go for out of those two?
I think it's a great question, Gab. I think they're two good candidates for different reasons. Obviously, at different stages in their own career as managers, right? Because for Cesc, it's only the beginning, and he did great at Como, like Thiago Motta did great at Bologna. That doesn't mean that you can make the step up to a team like Inter or Juventus, especially a rebuilding team like Inter, certainly in some parts of that squad, and follow the footsteps of Simone Inzaghi and just do this, and it's going to work. So it would be more good luck to Cesc, who I think can do it. I'm not saying he can't do it. I think he's a bright young coach, but he's still very much learning. For De Zerbi, I think Marseille were really hoping that the threat from Italy to come and get him was gone after Milan. Obviously chose Allegri. After Juventus seems to be choosing to keep Tudor. After Conte stayed at Napoli, they thought, okay, we're good now. Nobody from Italy, no club from Italy are going to come and try to get him. Well, I think if you De Zerbi and Inter come knocking, it's hard to turn it down.
I'm gonna say, like, I'm a huge Cesc. I think these are two guys who've got tremendous managerial futures.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either one is right for Inter the way Inter are right now. And I just say this about Cesc. He's hugely impressive. He's humble. He speaks extremely well. I've had the privilege of knowing the guy for 15 years. However, let's not forget, he did well at Como, 10th place. They were the fourth biggest spending team by net spend in all of Europe in doing so. So he had a tremendous amount of resources as well. Sure.
Gab, let's go back to Cristiano Ronaldo. We thought his time with Al Nassr was over, but now it might not be.
Yeah, I know. And Gianni Infantino's sitting there. It's like, Cristiano, come on, man. I made the special transfer window for you from June 1 to June 10th. Just go somewhere for a month, right?
Still have 5 days, so there's still plenty of time.
He does, and it could yet happen. Monterrey have been linked. El Hilal been linked. Botafogo's been linked. Inter Miami have been linked by me because I want to see Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi on the same team just for the Club World Cup. That would sell some tickets. No, now I think he said something like his chapter was closed. Now the Sears are still negotiating with Al Nassr.
Fernando Hierro is trying.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I just do the Club World Cup, Cristiano. You're fit. You're fine. And then pick afterwards. It looks almost certain that Theo Hernandez isn't getting a new deal at Milan. Atletico Madrid want him for some reason. But I guess what, Jules? There's another mega offer from Saudi. And guess what? It's Al Hilal.
Yeah, it is. It is. And to be fair, it's there on the table. I don't think he wants to take it. He's really waiting on Atletico, which is his, obviously, favorite destination for all the links between the Hernandez family, from his father to his brother to himself, with Atletico through the last 30 odd years or something. So you can understand why he wants, in a way, kind of going home to Atletico and not so much going to Saudi. If Atletico don't come, though, or can't find an agreement with Milan, I'm not really sure outside of Al Hilal where he could go right now. I don't think there are many
because
suitors.
Nobody wants him.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would question how much Diego Simeone. I know Atletico are known for doing weird deals, but you're okay on the left-hand side, aren't you?
Yeah.
You've got players there who are good in Samolino, and you got Julien further forward.
Yeah.
Well, what do you need this guy for? And also, you talk about indiscipline. As Diego Simeone, he's going to rip him a new one if he behaves the way he behaved at Milan.
UEFA are expected to weigh in on their financial stability rules next week. Gab, who is likely to be affected?
Well, I think we know it's extremely likely that Chelsea and Aston Villa will have found to have breached financial fair play, and they're going to reach a settlement agreement, which will likely see them fined. I think that's the most logical understanding. UEFA seem to have moved away from any more serious sanctions. Barcelona are in a tougher situation because some of those one-off sales that they've made about sort of future stadium rights and whatever, UEFA don't treat them as normal income the way La Liga does, but they treat them as exceptional items. So they could be facing potentially a fine, potentially a reduction in squad size, theoretically another block on transfers, which, by the way, they'll need to, I guess, unblock the block on transfers like they get from La Liga. So yeah, it's messy. And speaking of Barcelona, they're reportedly close to meeting Espanyol goalkeeper Joan Garcia's 25 million release clause. Espanyol fans don't like it. They've made it known. I'm guessing Marc-Andre Ter Stegen doesn't like this very much either.
No, I don't think so. He would. I mean, Joan Garcia has been the best goalkeeper in La Liga this season, and pretty much by far. And at 25 million for someone his age, because he's, I think, 24 years old, it's it's a really good deal, even for Barcelona, who don't have much money. We said that. That's why they haven't paid the release clause just yet, because they just need to make sure they find the salary space in their salary cap and be able to pay that release clause in one go, because that's what release clauses are for. And Espanyol fans don't like it that he goes to the enemy. Of course, I don't think Joan Garcia minds at all. I think he's quite excited to go. And if you're Ter Stegen, then you probably, I don't know who's going to be the number one, but if you spend that money on Joan Garcia, it should be him, really.
I don't know. He's the club captain. I think it's insurance against him getting injured, but it's by Szczesny, I assume.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we knew that, though. It's done. Chelsea have confirmed Liam Delap as their new signing. Anything more do you want to say, Gabby?
He's going to wear the number 9 shirt. And I think this is a very good signing as an alternative to Nico Jackson. And Cole Palmer, by the way, moving to the number 10 shirt.
Yeah.
It's a Bournemouth defensive fire sale after Dean Huyson to Real Madrid and probably Milos Kerkez to Liverpool. How about Ilya Zabarny to your freshly crowned champions of Europe, Paris
Champions
Saint-Germain?
of Europe. Yes, that's right. He's the priority for that right-footed centre-back that they want in front of Ordenes, for example, from Bruges. 50 million euros, 22 years old. I think he's very good. I preferred him to Huyson, even although not the same quality in distribution, but he's got so many other qualities. I think that would be a very good signing from PSG, and Luis Enrique is really keen as well. Jadon Sancho is going back to Manchester United, Gab, and like you, Chelsea didn't want to keep him around and will then pay £5 million to get him out of the obligation to sign him.
Essentially, this means they paid £5 million plus a substantial portion of his wages for a season. Again, not the best situation. I think they genuinely thought that they could work out a deal for him. I mean, they would have had to offer him a new contract. He would have to have taken a pay cut. He wasn't willing to do it. And I think it's kind of short-sighted from Jadon Sancho, actually.
Yeah.
He'd rather go to United. I don't know what he's going to do for the next 12 months, given that's when his contract expires a year from now. But yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity. More United movements. Jason Wilcox is getting a promotion and Dave Brailsford is stepping back. Jules, does this mean anything other than one fewer ball guy?
I've said it from the beginning. I was not keen on what Brailsford did at Nice. I just don't think he had what it took. Him coming from the cycling world. I'm not saying that if you're not from the football world, you can't succeed in football. I'm just saying it's more difficult. And I just don't think he had it at Nice. He made big blunders. I don't think he had it even less at United, considering the size of the club and the size of the task for him and for Ratcliffe and all their team, Jean-Claude Blanc, etc., but Omar Barada too. I don't think he had it, so I'm not surprised he's stepping back. I don't know exactly how much he contributed, but whatever he did, clearly, for him to step back, knowing the guy a little bit, shows that clearly he didn't feel like he was contributing enough and doing the right things. For Jason Wilcox, I don't know him at all, so I'm not sure if he's earned this promotion, if he deserves it, if he's going to do a good job. I guess he will be now the head of recruitment, and it will be down to him. So Mbomo Cunha is on him. So let's see what kind of summer he has.
Well, Jason Wilcox, of course, was he would have been a very good wing back.
Yeah, the player,
Amarine's,
as a sporting director, we don't know.
Joking. But I think what's important at any club, I mean, there was a moment, if you remember, when United had Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, Brailsford, and Wilcox. It's fine to have a lot of people. You're a big club, but you're only going to recruit so many players. And I think it's really important to have a clear hierarchy and clear accountability in terms of who reports to who. And Omar Barada is the CEO, the numbers, maybe he does the negotiations, I assume. Wilcox heads up the recruitment staff.
Yeah.
If you have then Brailsford in the mix too, and he's seen to be maybe whispering into Ratcliffe's ear or whatever else, that's not a good situation.
Yeah. Oh, John Textor, our favorite friend, Gab, is he screwing everything up for Crystal Palace?
All right, I'll do it. It's time! It's time! It's Texter time! Look, it's not his fault. I actually have a lot of sympathy here. But this is a situation, like we told you. You cannot have two clubs with the same ownership playing in the same UEFA competition unless you put one of them in a blind trust, which basically means that you have no control over the shares in the club for a year. So obviously that's what Olympiacos, so Mr. Marinakis.
So many clubs have done this, like,
Nice and Manchester United and so on, right? The difficulty here, though, is that obviously Palace and Lyon have both qualified for the Europa League. He's been to UEFA this week with Palace saying, look, you need to make an exception in this case because I don't really have any control. Yes, I have 43% of the shares, but I have no control because look, Blitzer and Harris, who always operate together, between them, they have 50%. Steve Parrish has the other 25%. Andy has a tie-breaking vote. My 43%, because of whatever weirdo deal he negotiated, I only have 25% of the say, and there's different facilities and all the other stuff. Now, are UEFA going to buy this or not? For Texter, he wants them to buy it because otherwise he's going to be in a really tricky position because otherwise his presence, his existence could ban Crystal Palace from playing in the Europa League, which seems extraordinary.
Can you put Lyon in a blind trust?
He can't put Lyon in a blind. He would have to put Palace in a blind trust because Lyon finished higher. But also the other issue is he doesn't want to put anything in a blind trust because he wants to list Eagle Football, his group, on the New York Stock Exchange. And to do that, they have to show X amount of assets. And if I'm putting an asset, if I'm trying to put an asset that I'm trying to sell to you, I have to have control and tell you that I'm selling you this asset, Jules, so you have some control over it. If it's in a blind trust where it's owned by third parties, then I don't have any control over it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So his options are he can either sell his shares in double quick time, but that's not going to happen. He's been trying to sell his shares forever. He could try to buy out Steve Parrish, Harris, and Blitzer. That ain't going to happen.
No.
They thought that maybe Palace could drop into the Conference League, but that's not going to happen because Brøndby from Denmark, of course, are in the Conference League. And guess who owns them? David Blitzer.
Yeah.
So he's going to say no to that. Also, they're going to make a lot less money in the Conference League. So we're heading towards an impasse here. I don't know if the other Palace owners can force him. Listen, we don't care about your stupid IPO. Yeah. For the good of Palace, you have to put this in a blind trust.
Yeah.
So I have some sympathy. You have some sympathy for JT?
Yeah, I understand. Although it seems that they realized this was a mess quite late when we could have told you that 6 months ago almost that there was a risk that this could happen.
I don't know. Maybe they thought that Lyon were going to be relegated in the D incision.
Make Champions League, maybe.
I don't know. Or make Champions League. He likes to think positive, that JT. Jude Bellingham's little brother, Job, is on his way to Borussia Dortmund, following in his footsteps. Does that mean next stop Real Madrid?
That's a good question, but it worked for Jude to go quite young to Borussia Dortmund and different time, the Dortmund at the time.
Also, this guy's ancient compared to how old Jude was, right?
Yeah, that's true. He's a bit older. Not that much older, though. But yeah, great season with Sunderland. He could have stayed at Sunderland and stayed in the Premier League and continue there. I think they felt that it was probably better to go through the Bundesliga because he worked, again, very well for his older brother. I can understand that. I don't know if he's as good as Jude. So
is it a similar profile? I don't watch the Champions. Is it a similar profile of player?
Yeah, quite similar.
Is he similar to the Bellingham who went to Borussia Dortmund and played in central midfield? Or is he similar to the Bellingham at Real Madrid who's a pretending striker?
He's a more still central mid, box to box now than the number 10 that his brother has become, like a goal machine in his first season kind of thing. The Premier League, we're going to meet to close the loophole that allows club owners to sell assets to themselves in order to balance the books. Gab, I guess this didn't happen?
That's right, it did. And this is all prompted by the sale of the Chelsea hotels where Chelsea Football Club sell the hotels to Blueco, which is the holding company that owns Chelsea, and also the sale of the Chelsea women's team. It seems obvious to me that you would close this loophole, so also to bring the rules in line with the UEFA rules, right? Because UEFA rules say you cannot do this. It didn't happen. It didn't even come to a vote because the Premier League aren't going to present this to a vote unless they know they have enough votes to win, right? Because otherwise they look stupid. Yeah. Although the fact that we're talking about it and say, hey, you don't have enough support for this.
True, it's already stupid. Yeah.
What I've been told is that it's because some clubs are saying, wait a minute, this doesn't apply retroactively. So we're not stupid. Chelsea benefited from this. If we pass this law now, then we won't get to benefit from it in future. It's kind of disappointing. I think every league needs good governance as an example of good governance. This should not be allowed. Yeah. They should close the loophole. And people should say it's more important that we have a well-run league where people play for the rules rather than my own interests, frankly. Jack Grealish reportedly won't be going to the Club World Cup. Jules, he's on the market, but he has 2 years left. He has a huge contract. Is he going to go on the Calvin Phillips plan?
Well, so you mean the loan plan? I guess right now, I don't know how much money Man City would want for Jack Grealish. I don't know what the transfer fee would look like. 50 million, 40 million pounds, maybe. They bought him for 100 million, let's not forget. 3 years ago.
But who would spend money on Jack Grealish?
I think he's still a good player.
Al Hilal, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. Saudi, although I doubt he would go to Saudi, to be fair. I don't know. It's a tricky one. I mean, being dropped for the Club World Cup when you need every player available to be able to have a pre-season while playing in a tournament, you think they really don't want you if they drop you for that. Yeah, absolutely. Because they will literally take every man and their dogs from their squad to be able to go and balance that pre-season with the tournament kind of thing. But to leave him at home and train on his own is quite brutal, I think. And you're right. Okay, a loan, although he's got huge wages, but still a loan is possible. But a loan where?
I was thinking about who was the manager at Villa before Unai Emery? Like, means there's some manager that he's worked with before that liked him. I know, obviously, Villa hate him, so he's not going back there. But
I don't think so. And again, I don't think that they have enough white players. I just don't know where you would go, really. It's a tricky situation, I think.
John Texter, this is your opportunity. Botafogo.
US President Donald Trump announced a travel ban for citizens of 12 countries, including Iran. Gab, should Mediterranean be concerned, and all his teammates and all their fans after qualifying for the World Cup? And will he be joining Grealish on the golf course as well?
Well, most of his teammates at Inter are not Iranian, so I think they're fine. You're talking about the Club World Cup.
Yeah, of course. They would be in, but what about him? It doesn't apply to
It does not
celebrities.
apply to sporting figures. There's a specific...
Right.
By the way, this is where you realize that however much people made fun of Gianni Infantino for sucking up to Donald Trump, it was time well spent because there's a specific carve-out for FIFA competitions as well as the Olympics. I think this is more relevant to the Club World Cup because who knows 2026 World Cup, what it's going to be like. What it does mean is an issue for fans, though, because there is no carve-out for fans. So if Iran qualify for the World Cup, unless the president changes his mind and tightens up the order, the team can all go and the delegates and blah, blah, blah. The fans can't go. Now, it's okay because there are an enormous amount of Iranian Americans in some cities, but obviously it is an issue. It's an issue if it's extended to other nations. Like I said, the World Cup is, the big World Cup is like a year away. So let's not worry about that. The immediate concern was the Club World Cup, and Mediterranean is going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Club World Cup, The Athletic reports that ticket sales aren't great.
I mean,
they have some numbers here for you to list.
Yeah, but I don't want to criticize that. So there are games where the two teams are not great on paper, certainly, or that a lot of people in the US would not know or even probably have heard of, that were always going to be a difficult sell, right? To everyone, even if for anybody, right? And why sometimes are those games played in 60,000 seater stadiums or 65,000 seater stadium, where you could easily have picked maybe a city with a smaller ground, 25,000. There are MLS stadiums for 25,000 seaters.
Well, a good example is DC, where they are playing games at, I think it's called Audi Field, which I think is like 18,000 or 20,000.
Which is perfect for some games. I'm not saying that you should play a final between, I don't know, Real Madrid and PSG there. But for some games, it would be worth it.
So the one that they cite specifically here, June 14th.
The opening game.
The opening game. Al Ahly against Inter Miami. In Miami.
Yeah.
With that Lionel Messi
that
fella.
Guy and the others.
The prices, they say, have gone down. They are 1/6 what they were originally. They have dynamic pricing. They say there's tens of thousands of unsold tickets right now. And we're what, like 9 days away, 10 days away?
10 days away, yeah.
We've always been sold on this idea that in the US they can sell everything. They're so good at marketing and whatever. Something's gone badly wrong here if we're in this situation.
Absolutely. And I agree. And I really think that putting some of those games in those massive stadiums just didn't help at all.
Maybe the argument should have been, maybe Inter Miami shouldn't have been playing in Miami because people would go watch Messi somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Gab, yesterday marked 180 days since the independent panel in the case of Manchester City and the 115 charges began their deliberations. Why is it taking them so long?
I have no idea. I assume it's because there's a lot of, I'm purely speculating here, but there's a lot of legal actions that have been taken and they have to look at this and make it watertight, blah, 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 whatever the judgment is. What I find super interesting is that, first of all, I am pretty satisfied that neither the Premier League nor Manchester City know anything at all about this process. Remember Guardiola, like, in the next month it'll come out. And we've had other people saying, like, well, in March it should come out. Like, you guys don't know anything. You know nothing. And that's good. That's the way it should be, right? It should be the 3 judges, lawyers, and nobody else, right? Well, not even the lawyers. That was just the 3 judges by themselves, like reviewing the evidence. So that part is encouraging. What I find hilarious, though, is I read in the last 24 hours, both an article, very well sourced by somebody very knowledgeable, talking about the fact that it's going so long, that it's taking so long, means that City are likely to be found innocent of most of the charges. And somebody else saying the fact that it's taken so long means that City are likely to have been found guilty of the charges.
Okay.
I don't know. If I were super cynical and didn't have faith in the process, I might suggest that maybe it's because the Premier League and Manchester City are trying to negotiate some settlement in the background privately.
Yes.
But then again, I'm not that cynical, so I wouldn't suggest that. And there's been no suggestion that they're doing
It could be that, yeah.
Russell Martin is the new manager of Glasgow Rangers. Jules, I wasn't expecting this. Were you?
Well, we knew he was on the short list with...
we knew he was on the short list.
Yeah, on the short list.
With other people who didn't seem viable, like Brian Priskin and Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, and Davide Ancelotti, who
did seem viable.
Well, but who has no experience of English football at all, for example.
But Scotland.
No experience, but of British football, if you want. No experience of first-team football either. So you could see the pros and cons, I think, for Davide, who would have been our pick for sure if we'd been running Glasgow Rangers. But Russell Martin apparently was very, very convincing in his interviews with the Rangers board and had prepared really well. Then he had a clear vision of what he wanted to do. It's a tough situation considering how dominant Celtic and Brendan Rodgers have been for the last 10 seasons or so, or something like that. I don't know. So it's not going to be easy.
I can't erase the Southampton experience. Obviously, he did well to get them up. But when we talk about clear vision of what he wants to do, I will never forget. I forget who they were playing against, but I will never forget the situation where they're a goal down. And obviously, he loves his possession.
Yeah.
He sends on that Onuachu guy, the guy who's like 11 feet tall.
Yeah. And
it's deep in injury time, and it's sideways pass to sideways pass to sideways pass. If this is his clear vision, it's not a clear vision you want to have.
No. I don't think that's the vision at all. But it's clearly that he struggled in the Premier League. That doesn't mean he's going to struggle in the SPL either. You know.
I don't know.
I wish him good luck. I think I like managers with these kind of ideas. Let's see if it's realistic to do it at Rangers against Celtic, for example.
I think he's a handsome man with a very fetching beard who obviously interviewed very well and did a good job in the championship. But in the championship with Southampton, with an absolutely loaded team with talent at the time when they came up.
Yeah. Gab, we love to check in on this story occasionally. Please tell me that the £2 billion from the sale of Chelsea that was supposed to go in humanitarian help to Ukraine aren't still sitting in the bank account somewhere in the UK?
Yeah, they're still sitting in Roman Abramovich's bank account. They have not been released. We'd like to update you about the story. There is a development, which is the government, in fact, the Foreign Minister of the UK, David Lammy, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, have both come out and said, we're going to sue if this money isn't released. And obviously...
Who will they sue?
I guess they're going to sue... They're going to sue the company that... They're going to sue, I think it's called Fortstam, the Abramovich's company, where this money's in the frozen accounts. Roman Abramovich's camp have said, no, the reason we haven't released the funds is because we wanted to go to victims of the war in Ukraine, and that includes Russians and so on. It seems like a slight distinction. It is absurd that when you force the guy to sell the club, which is what they did, right? He owned the club, his club. Somebody comes along without, by the way, a legal process where they put him on trial and saying you were colluding with Vladimir Putin, blah, 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 to do this and that, without arguing that case or proving it. They take the money away. He agrees, presumably so they don't go after him. And he says, but I want this money used for this charity, that you don't specify exactly the terms with which you're going to release it. But, we've already made that point.
Yeah.
But it is such an embarrassing situation. Mary Earps and Fran Kirby have retired from international football. Millie Bright has taken a pause. None of these women are going to be in the England team at the upcoming Euros that you'll be there covering it in Switzerland for us.
Yeah.
I bet England boss Serena Wiegman appreciates the advance warning.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are three different cases, obviously, and today on Thursday, later this afternoon, Wiegman will announce the squad for the Euros, the big Euros for them. They're obviously the holders of it. Mary Earps was told she was going to be a number 2, and she didn't want to be the number 2 of the national team, so she preferred to retire than to actually be the backup of the goalkeeper. Fran Kirby, I think the writing was on the wall already that she was not going to be picked and she could retire. For Millie Bright, it's obviously a sad situation because she didn't feel that physically or mentally she was ready to be in the squad and be there at the Euros and give her best for the national team. And I'm sure it's heartbroken that she announced that she told Serena Wiegman that she could not go. She had a long season, a tough season, and she said that she just needed a bit of a break, which we can all understand, obviously. So Millie Bright especially is a big loss for England because she's the best defender for me. She would have been a starter every day. For Earps, clearly now she was a number 2, and Frank
didn't that happen at club level too, where things didn't quite work out with her since leaving Manchester United? Mary Earps,
she went to PSG and she had I don't think she had a bad season there, but
I thought she was in and out. But I could be
mistaken. Yeah, she was a bit in and out, but not. She played in the Champions League, for example, and things like that. But she was not. I don't think she had a bad season either, but she was certainly not the best goalkeeper in the world, like she was named the year before last. And I think Hampton has done really well for England and deserves to be the number 1 there. So we've seen players, didn't we, once told they would not be starting or would not be key players anymore, decided to retire from international football. I don't think it's something you should be doing. You should always be at the service of your country.
I was thinking about this. From a major tournament when you're the defending champion, I don't think that's happened. I don't think that happens very often. I mean, Millie Bright's a different situation.
Yeah,
I think
Bright's
she
different.
I think mental health is really, really important. And if she's come out and she talks about this, that's a bit different, right? But I am a bit surprised. We're told how competitive everybody, professional athletes are and whatever else. You are the defending champion. Your national team's done so much for you. I think without England at the last Euros, most people wouldn't know who Mary Earps was. To say no, I don't want to go because I don't want to compete for the job. I mean, what if the starter gets injured?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think it's disappointing.
And it's not something I don't know. I'm curious. Has there been any backlash in the?
I don't think so. And again, I don't think she was in the position where people would see the controversy and start saying like, why has Serena Wiegman made that decision? I think she's not the best England goalkeeper right now. So in fairness, I don't think there's much else you can say. She didn't want to be a number 2. She's good enough just to be a number 2 right now, not number 1. So she doesn't want to be part of it. She doesn't want to be part of it.
I mean,
I remember the only close case I can remember. I'm sure there's been another one for France before. I just can't. But Adrien Rabiot was a reserve in the squad for the World Cup and didn't want to be a reserve. So he said to Deschamps, "Don't count me in."
But he wasn't in the 23.
No, but he was the next name up if somebody would get injured. And he said, "No, I don't want to be that. Don't count on me. I'm going on holidays," and that's it. So. But I'm sure there's been another one with France before that I can't remember right now.
The famous run, Johan Cruyff, 1978, the World Cup in Argentina over bonuses and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that was different reasons. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was different reasons. Yeah, it wasn't because I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think it also speaks to some of the differences in the way the media when you have a certain amount of media glare and a certain backlash. I'll be really curious to see whether anybody gives Mary Earps a hard time about this or whether most people won't care.
Heung-min Son has offer from Saudi Arabia, Gab, and also just 1 year left on his contract to Spurs.
Yes, Al Hilal apparently. No, stop. This is a classic one, right? He's got a year left. He's such an important figure for Tottenham. What he's done for the club has been tremendous. And what the club have done for him.
Over 10 years,
A year left. Naturally, you want a new deal. New sporting director likely coming in, Fabio Paratici. He probably wants to know, is Ange going to be here next year?
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to also impact the situation. If you're Spurs, again.
So they triggered the extra year. That it was a club trigger clause, that one, not him. So his contract finished now this summer, and they triggered
the extra year. But that also would mean that from his perspective, he'd say, okay, you triggered this extra year. How about you give me a year on top of that?
Yeah.
And would you do that? Again, thinking with my resources hat on and thinking of the Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk experience, I would say, hey, you got it really good here. I'm going to gamble. I'm not going to extend your contract now. I'm going to have this conversation with you in January, April, whatever. From his perspective, though, you probably want a bit more assurances. And I think he'd want to also be in the room and to understand who the next coach is going to be. Speaking of Saudi, Gabri Veiga, remember him? He's back in Europe joining, surprise, Porto.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could have told you that 2 years ago when he left, really, when everybody was so surprised that one of the brightest young Spanish players doing well at Celta Vigo at the time decided to go to Saudi.
He was really of all the guys who've gone, he was really the one guy who was on the rise.
Absolutely.
First big contract.
The one that made no sense to go.
The one that didn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So now he's coming back for 15 million euros, which is super cheap if he can recover the level that he had 2 years ago, because I saw him play in Saudi and it was not as good as he should have been, or even that he was, or the potential that he had before he left to go there. Obviously, Jorge Mendes involved massively in all of this. Uncle George, our favorite uncle. So let's see. This could be a really good deal for Porto, and they could get a player that could easily leave them for 15 million in 2 years' time. He will still be young enough and go to a top club in Europe. From him, he made a lot of money in 2 years. Did he lose 2 years of his career? Probably. I'm not sure he would have learned much there, even with Matches Jasler as a coach, even with playing with Firmino and Mahrez and all those guys. I don't think he would have learned a lot in those last 2 years.
No, and I think what's interesting here is that he's still young enough that maybe he has some of the financial pressure on him is off.
Yeah, true.
But from Porto's perspective, this is a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
I mean, he would have to be an absolute turd to go and not get your money back for 50 million. So they will make a profit when Gabri Veiga moves on. No question about it.
IFAB have announced a common sense rule change, Gab. What could that be?
The whole double touch thing. Remember Julien Alvarez on the penalties. So the rules, and I can't believe we've gone more than 100 years of football without anybody kind of noticing. This is not what the rule was assigned to do.
Yeah.
If you take a penalty, you can only hit the ball once. You can't hit it forward, pass it to yourself, blah blah blah. Right? We know this. But then, and I guess this wouldn't have been an issue before VAR or before they had like the assistants kind of staring and looking for this. If you have a double touch, which might happen if you slip when you take it. So you hit the ball and hit it again, like Julien Alvarez famously did.
Or Messi in the World Cup final. Can we replay that World Cup final? No? Because that penalty, double touch the penalty, so it should not have counted.
Well, that's not what VAR found.
Well, no, they didn't even look at it. But they should have, because he used a double touch, so it should not have been in. So it should have.
If VAR doesn't see it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But we all know that it happened.
They saw it with Julien Alvarez.
Yeah.
And the result was a disallowed goal. So now or disallowed penalty. Now they said, you're going to retake the penalty, the double touch, which is if we think the double touch was unintentional.
Exactly.
Right? Which I think is common sense.
Yeah.
Well done, IFAB. Took you a while, but you got there. Will Still is gone at Lens. Is coming over here, in fact.
Yeah.
So our boy, Joseph Ogurlian, is turning to Stonewise Piersage. You like this, don't
I like this. I told Joseph to go for Stonewise too, because he did a really good job at Lyon, was sacked by our friend JT, John
this
Textor.
Is like the fifth John Textor reference
of the show. There's more to come even. By John Textor, without us really knowing why Pierre Sage got sacked. Didn't make much sense at the time, but he had like a great year for Lyon, really. He took them, they were bottom of the table and qualified them for Europe. Then they were still in the race for the Champions League places when he was sacked, and they ended up missing out, by the way, under Fonseca. So I like Pierre Sage a lot. I rate him. A lot of people rate him in France. He had other offers like Nantes, for example, and he chose Lens. I think it's a wise choice for him and a wise choice from Lens. So I think he's going to do well there. And Gab, finally, one more John Textor reference, right? How about Joaquin Correa joining Botafogo? What could go wrong here?
Okay, so first of all, I am absolutely shocked that this move is going through. I would have thought that since Simone Inzaghi takes El Tucu Correa everywhere he goes, I would have thought he'd be on his way to Al Hilal.
Yeah.
Probably not to play, but I don't know. Maybe he could lay out the cones, join Inzaghi's coaching staff. I don't know. Joaquin Correa is one of those mysteries of football because you see the guy and he's tall. He's got tremendous technique. He's an elegant dribbler. And he can actually get around the pitch when he wants to.
Yeah.
So you figure, man, this guy's going to be really good. And then every time he plays, not every time, but generally, he literally stinks up the pace, right?
No desire, it looks like. No hunger.
I hate to bring this up, the hunger, the body language. I think hunger, body language, I think they're stupid things that ex-pros bring up when they're on television when a good player's playing badly. That's my general sense, right? And it often is. If the guy doesn't look like them, if he's not snarling, then whatever, then he doesn't, body language is all wrong. But with this guy, it's a different story. It's the same thing when he went to France, right? He wasn't good.
He wasn't good for Marseille, no?
He had his moments, some moments at Lazio. Contributed absolutely almost nothing to Inter this year. So I'm glad he's left Inter. This Botafogo adventure. JT, you might have to go and kick some backside over there to get El Tucu Correa playing. But who knows? Maybe he's closer to home. Maybe he's closer to Tucumán or wherever he's from. And, he'll perform. Two Belgian TikTokers hid in the Allianz Arena toilets for 27 hours to sneak into the Champions League final. Jules, I bet you're grateful we didn't need to do that.
No, we didn't need to. I mean, this is a pretty incredible story. They came in the day before the final. They wore this high-vis, is that what you say in English? High-vis jacket to pretend they were kind of workers, all the people that prepared the things for the final. And then went into the toilet each, so not the same one, with a bag with snacks and stuff. And they stayed in that toilet cubicle, I guess. They put a handmade poster on the door saying that the toilet was out of order. And then they stayed in there for 27 hours. And when they started hearing the next day some fans arriving and using the toilet, they knew that the gates had opened and people had coming in the stadium for the final. So they came out and they said it was very hard because you could not obviously get comfy and sleep, or you had to sit down. The light was always on. So it can't have been nice 27 hours, but hey, they got to see the final.
So that part about them complaining that they couldn't sleep because it's hard to sleep sitting down with the lights. I'm like, dude, you get one of those face masks they give you on the airplane. You block out the light. And also, when it's the middle of the night, I think it's pretty safe. Nobody's patrolling the Allianz Arena toilets.
No, yeah.
Like, you can get out, sleep on the floor of the toilet and go back inside.
Still not the most comfy.
Still not the most comfy person. I don't necessarily want to celebrate this too much because...
Yeah, you should not be doing it. Let's be clear.
But what's going to happen is then you get more draconian security measures, which make it more of a pain in the butt for normal fans to get into the ground. I mean, I think we always need to weigh that against this.
Yeah. Gab, how about a shout out to Platense, who become champions of Argentina for the first time in their 120 years anniversary in history. Even.
So in my old age, I am increasingly liking playoffs more. So Platense, obviously one of the smaller clubs. They're from Buenos Aires. They have the best nickname. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Los Calamares.
Oh,
the squids. How cool is that? So obviously they have the Apertura and Clausura there.
Yeah.
They finished sixth. They went into the playoffs and they beat everybody away from home. They beat all the big clubs and they win this. And this is something that's going to stay with them. I think it's a good story. I don't know. People might say, "Oh, look, but we have the FA Cup and whatever for this kind of thing."
It's the season. Palace win the first thing in 120 years. Newcastle 71 years. Even Spurs to an extent.
Paris Saint-Germain winning the Champions League.
Bologna, PSG, of course, for the first time in I don't know how many years. So this is the season for those incredible drought to end.
All right. So does that mean Mamelodi Sundowns, whose president I interviewed, he should be coming up very soon? Does it mean they're going to win the Club World Cup? Stay tuned and find out. Jules, we're going to come back on Monday after the Nations League final. Either Spain or France as we record this against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.